Well, welcome back to this special series of dairy history on behalf of National Dairy Shrine. I'm Peggy from the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, and my guest today that we will dive into his story that has made dairy history in its own rights with Dr. Scott Armbrust. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
And now, Dr. Armbrust is president and owner of Paradocs Embryo Transfer. In addition to that, he's been a part of the ownership of some of the top cows in the world, as well as a pioneer in bovine embryo transfer. He's trained veterinarians around the world in ET techniques and provides interns and mentorship for potential students in the veterinary medicine practice. And so with that, tell us a little bit about yourself and your story of what led you to this world of dairy cattle.
Well, I grew up in Nebraska on a pretty good registered farm. My dad was quite involved in the registered hosting business and a leader in Nebraska agriculture and dairy. And we showed some pretty good Holsteins and even had a couple in the early days come to Madison. And in a top 5 placing was a big deal in those days. And we had a chance to, we're very active in 4-H, and my dad got into the sales management business, and so I grew up going to shows and working auctions, and through intense interest in Holstein cattle, but knew I wasn't ever going to get a chance to come back and farm because we were too close to Omaha. Decided, well, maybe veterinary medicine was pretty good, and Dr. Elmer Wolfler used to come to Boys Town back in the early 50s and 60s and would preg check cows, and I got an intense interest in dairy reproduction. So one thing led to another, and I ended up at Iowa State going to veterinary school and working with intense interest in dairy reproduction, theriogenology, and eventually to Wisconsin. And that special cow interest was perked when I was 12 years old. Dick Brooks from Packlemar brought Melly and snow boots, and I'm going, wow. That's part of the story.
Yeah, so that's where those early beginnings came from. And,
sure.
And you mentioned, Scott, that your dad would work sales and you would be there with him.
Right.
Any special moments that stand out to you of a cow or a sale that you got to be a part of in some way?
Well, at the Pawnee Farm dispersal, I think 1960, 1961, they sold Chief's mother, and she was the top selling cow that day. Went to Arlinda Farms, and I was a sales slip runner, and Merlin Carlson came and bought the cow. Cash Bottom was the contending bidder, and the rest is history as far as, Wally Lindskog and my dad were good friends. And also, at our breakfast table, we had Bill Weeks, Whitey Thompson, a lot of the industry people would come to Nebraska, and I'd get to sit and listen.
Wow, so you got to absorb those stories from some of the greats of that time, and look at you now. You are among those that others will get to hear your stories, and so part of your story not only is great cattle and seeing that from a young age, but you mentioned this path that led you to embryo transfer and an interest in repro. So what were those early days like in the embryo transfer business? How did that get its start for you?
Well, I went to Wisconsin in 1975 to work on dairy cattle, and I got to Wisconsin via an internship, preceptorship with Dr. Lee Allenstein. And so we were 1 year in central Wisconsin and then got recruited to go over to Green Bay and been there ever since. And a lot of really good herds and some really fine cattle, that's what I came to Wisconsin to work on. And in the late 70s, a group of us, a couple of the colleagues, and Dr. Dan Hornicle, and it was at Whitewater when I was a student there, and we got to talking about this embryo transfer stuff. So we've had a lot of working together over the years, starting in 1978, 77, about taking these franchise cows and having multiple calves, and we were the disruptive technology in the late 70s. And we worked through surgical transfer to non-surgical transfer to developing freezing embryos. And as freezing developed, we started doing more international marketing. So we had several contacts through the industry and made a very good contact with Worldwide Sires, with Rich Denier and Earl Kermeyer, and they would send some of the early, particularly German veterinarians, to train that wanted to learn our technology. So we had a lot of people come, we trained people, we still got those connections. Our largest market for 40 years has been Germany because of our connections and what we've done over there, and still have a lot of friends. So it's been, little did I know that my DVM would be the passport to the world's cattle industry.
Oh, wow. How incredible. And when you reflect on those early days, as you said, you worked in what at that time was considered a disruptive technology, right?
Correct.
That has now been, I would call it transformational.
Well, over the years, I mean, there was times when 95% of the bulls in the 90s were ETs, and it gave a lot more variety of genetics and faster genetics. The disruptive technology today is genomics, sex semen, and IVF. It's a completely different disruptive technology and transformational and faster.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier too that with embryo transfer, you had the ability to take a good cow and make more of her, multiply her. Was that kind of this marriage of the two things that were near and dear to your heart? One being good cattle, and two being advanced reproduction?
Well, it was always to have good cows, and we kind of figured out that there was international marketing and we could work with these good cows and get multiple. So then we decided, if a good cow came along, we'd find the right young dairymen, the right partners, and I would do the ET and help with the marketing, and they would take care and do the top management, and that's how the Emerald Acres partnership developed, and then Crescent Mead and Ducats, and we'd find a good cow that was in world demand, and between marketing bulls, marketing heifers, or embryos, that's how we developed the business. And the Tammy cow, we had 20, 30 tours at expo time at Emerald Acres every year.
Wow.
So.
And you mentioned Tammy. She's one cow on a list of many cows from Mindy, Alice, Frosty, Barbara, just to name a few.
The key isn't the cows, it's the people you're working with. Good partners.
How did you know? So you had an eye for good cows, but also the ability to find those good people. And you said you would be able to find that in some of those younger dairymen and good cow people. What did you notice about those individuals that you saw their potential?
Passion. Common sense, cow sense. It was great cow sense. They could tell a cow that she was getting sick before they got sick.
So they were good cow people.
And cooperation, here's the marketing plan. Like the Tammy family, when all these tours would come, we had 25 or 30 milking daughters standing in the barn at one time, and one of the top Canadian studs came in one day and he says, the only time I've ever mated 4 generations in one day. Tammy, daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter.
Wow.
And that was a compliment.
Wow, that certainly is. And so what other cows really stand out to you? Is there one in particular that's especially near and dear to your heart that you've worked with?
Well, Tammy.
Tammy, yeah. And what made her so special?
Well, she had high protein when protein was just coming. She went 94. She flushed well. I think out of that family we sold probably 30 bulls to Japan and that many bulls to AI, and it just to see people's reaction.
So she was kind of the showstopper of that time.
Well, at that time. And she's made her mark particularly with the Europeans because of her high protein and fat. And she was from the Rip Valley. Alan Ripchen gets all the credit for breeding the cow.
Yeah. So your impact has been very strong in dairy cattle and genetics and touched all parts of the world through the exporting and marketing of embryos. But there's also another area where you've had a strong influence, Dr. Armbrust, and that's with veterinarians.
Well, we have to be mentor for the next generation. So it's important.
Who mentored you?
Alan Stein.
So, yeah, that was your greatest mentor, huh? And and what do you hope your impact is on those young vets?
Well, it's a different world in agriculture today than it was. We were in James Herriot or Lee Allenstein's world. Today it's bigger agriculture. You have to adjust. You have to adjust to the technology. But they have to make the decision, you know, where do you want to be involved? How do you want to make your impact? Do you want to go back to a rural community? You know, do you want to be involved in dairy? So many of our profession go into small animal. It's lucrative and it's an easier life than the dairy practice. But you have to show those or give those that want a chance the ability to follow their dream.
Are there any words that you share with some of those young people to encourage them to stay in large animal and in bovine practice?
Oh, I think it's offering the experience and showing them what agriculture can offer, you know, whether it's consulting or reproduction or surgery or teaching, you know, they have to find their own way, but you have to give them the opportunity.
And that's the key right there, right? Someone did it for you, didn't they?
Sure.
Yeah. Do you find now that some of those that you mentored have paid it forward to the next in line?
Yes, and it's very gratifying to see that they're carrying on the next generation.
Yeah.
Whether it's teaching or involvement or with the university or even with the local Holstein Association, a lot of them know what they've been entitled to.
Well, between the impact on other veterinarians and young people on that side of the business, the impact on cattle, and also the impact on dairy cattle genetics around the world, did you ever dream that embryo transfer would lead to what it has today in the dairy industry?
It's been a major impact, but when you see that bunch of embryos and then you see that bunch of calves, one of them's going to be special.
Yeah. Aww. So it was 3 years ago that here at World Dairy Expo, you were honored with the National Dairy Shrine Pioneer Award.
Sure.
What did that award mean to you?
Well, it's as much about recognition for the people that have supported me. You know, it isn't so much about, I've always had the philosophy that if my clients, my friends can be successful, then I can be successful. So that's, it was a great honor and much appreciated. as much about my family and me, but it gives a lot of reflection for our industry.
Absolutely. And Dr. Armbrust, as we wrap up our time with you today of sitting here and sharing some of the stories of your lifetime and your impact, and also a legacy of impact on cattle and on people. And as you mentioned before, it's the people that that have really stood out for you. Let's just take a moment to look ahead. What's next for you?
Well, we're slowing down. We're still exporting embryos, particularly for clients that we've done, international clients, but it's time for the next generation's turn, and it'll be their turn. But Nancy and I are very involved in Iowa State University and the foundation and the vet school, and also the Green Bay community. My wife always finds projects and groups to work and raise money for, and that's become a lot of focus. So we've been very blessed. The people we worked with, the friends we've made, the international travel. The secret to life, marry up. Jim knows that.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Armbrust, for sharing your stories and that passion. The passion that you look for in others is the same passion that has brought others to you as a mentor and as a leader. And we thank you for sitting down with us today here to collect these stories on behalf of National Dairy Shrine. And so thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
It's been a great ride. We've had a lot of fun.
And you're not done
yet.
And you've got to have fun. And you're not done yet.
You bet.
So this wraps up our conversation today with Dr. Scott Armbrust. I'm Peggy Coffeen from the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, and we are pleased to collect stories like this to share the history on behalf of National Dairy Shrine.